everybody, I'm Tony with Beastmode Camping, and today we're stepping away from the trails and heading into the editing room. I've had a few people ask about the editing process, how it works and all of that, so I figured I'd answer those questions today. One of the biggest questions I get asked is, who's my editor? Well, unfortunately I am. The channel's still not big enough for me to hire an editor yet. But if you're looking to get some street cred, let me know. Shoot me an email or drop a note in the comments, we'll take a look. Now I'm going to show you the entire process, and while I'm an outdoorsman, you're probably going to see the most futuristic way possible of editing videos. But enough of that. And for the rest of you content creators out there, I'm going to go ahead and apologize, because once your editors see how I do mine, you're probably going to have to invest in some more equipment, because this isn't your average setup. And today you're going to see how VR helps me produce these videos that you love or hate. Oh, and on a different note, you guys really need to start spending some more time in the comments section, because I get more comments on Instagram and text message than I do here on YouTube. And you're totally messing up the algorithm, so do me a favor. Brian, Cosby Fish, you're good. Pang, Rofe, drop some comments and stop texting me about them. Oh, and Kevin, you too. Let's head on in and see how we get things done around here. All right, so first let me show you my workspace. It's basically a dual monitor setup. It's pretty standard. Generally, I've got whatever I'm working on over here, and then I've got things like Discord or email, whatever over here. And I keep my rig over here and my coffee. If you want to know more about my rig stats, let me know, and we'll get into that. But for now, we're going to focus on the editing software. So I use Adobe Premiere Pro for about 95% of all my editing. There's probably about another 5% that comes in where we're using After Effects or something else. I use a ton of Photoshop to manipulate anything I need to do within the videos, but that's about it. So in a normal setup, this is what you would see. And again, this is not going to be an in-depth how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, but more an overall of what I do, how I do it, why I do it. Let me pull up a test video for you. So in a normal everyday application, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see your timeline down here, your monitor window here, your effects pane, and your assets window. One of the problems is you can see how scrunched up this stuff is. Then if I want to manipulate anything, I mean, it's so small, you can make it bigger by holding down here and pulling those up. And as you can see, these bars get bigger, but then you only get a couple of them, and you can move this up, so then it gives you more space to work with the audio. However, and you can do the same with the video. No real reason to do it this way. And then now your audio is all, I mean, you can get to it and you can manipulate the levels. And one of the reasons you want to do this is, like, if you want the audio levels a little lower or higher, you generally do it this way. Well, there's about 1 million ways to do these. However, this is one of the quickest ways when you're working through a ton of video. So, but as you can see, now my monitor window got tiny. And then it's also a small amount of real estate when you could be working with something like this. Or, as you can see, just on one monitor, this is starting to look pretty good. It's not the greatest. I mean, you still have all this, and I can pull this up really high, but as you can see, that monitor window now is just teeny tiny. And a lot of times you can make these bigger or smaller depending on your needs. A lot of times you don't need your asset window all that large anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. But having to move this back and forth and not having a controlled setup all the time gets to be a pain. As well as, you've got your effects bars and all that stuff over here. Now this is just on a standard screen, and you can change it to whatever you want. So like a lot of times what I'll do is you can move, like say, grab this entire box and move it onto my second screen. Now that's cool. And we'll move this over here and move this over here as well. And by the way, guys, you don't have to worry. If you end up doing something you don't like the way it looks, or you don't know how to get it back, just go over here to Window, Workspaces, and Reset Saved Layout. Once you do that, everything goes back to the way you started. So it's not that big of a deal. Go ahead and play with it. But what I was getting at is when you move these windows around, and let's say we take this window and move it over here, and we even move all of them over here to kind of stack them up. That's good and all, but what did it actually buy us? It didn't buy us too much, because now I still have this over here. I've still got these over here. And I guess I could move things around, but then I'm stuck with just the timeline window over here. And I can't really drag this one anywhere. I mean, I guess I could move it over here, but when I'm scrolling around, that means I have to look over here while my mouse is over here, and it just gets really inconvenient. It's really weird. And the worst part about this is I haven't found a really nice setup for a dual monitor setup. If you guys know, place it in the comments and we'll take a look at it. So now, let's see what it looks like when we move things into VR. Now we're also going to go over some of the tips and tricks of working with this, because there are some upsides and downsides. By the way, this is not an ad, and you can probably use this with any of the VR goggles out there. However, this is the Meta Quest 3. I've used it on the 2 and it works just fine. The only difference is some of the pass-through that we're going to go over here in a minute. And one thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you connect this to power, because it will be using a lot. Here we are in the great outdoors. This is my virtual camping spot. I kind of like it. It's got a tent, campfire, a hammock, and look at this scenery. Oh, hey, there's me. What's up, everybody? And look over here. I've even got my own personal waterfall. But hey, that's not what we're doing here. Let's get into the real stuff. So inside VR, I'm firing up a program called Immersed. This is the program that's going to take our desktop to the next level. When you first open Immersed, you're only going to have one screen. And that's not going to cut it, because everything's still super scrunched up within Premiere Pro here. So what you're going to want to do is click here to add another screen. It'll take just a second and bam. Look at that. Now let's go ahead and do this a couple more times. I want 4 monitors in all. So now I'm basically working with 4 monitors here. Check this out. So if I want to move it back further or pull it closer, I can do that. I think this one goes about right there. And also, one of the cool things is I can make it bend. So you can make it curved or flat. I'm going to push it back just a bit and make it just a bit bigger. Yeah, right there. All right, for this next one, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Get it situated nicely. That feels about right. Something like that. Now this one's going to be where my monitor is. Basically this window here. I'm going to pull up there. Now this next one I don't use as often, so I don't need it as big as the other ones. So we're going to put it somewhere right about there. Feels about good. One last thing I wanted to show you before we get too far into this is check this out. When I do the mixed reality, now this shows you my actual room. And where I used to have the 2 monitors right here, I've got one big one, a couple side ones, the top one by my ceiling fan, and this one over on the left is just a monster that basically takes up the entire doorway. So the first thing you want to do is set up your monitor resolutions. Now a lot of them, what I've noticed is if they're too high of resolutions like you see in monitor 1 up here, then Premiere Pro gets really slow. So I'm going to turn all these to just 1080, 1920 by 1080. So you see that one, the number 1 monitor just changes in correspondence with this. So that's good. That's exactly what I want to see it. Now I just want them in order to where when I go from say 1 to 4, it goes up here. Now look at this real estate. And the only other thing we're missing is I don't have a keyboard down here. So I do want a little keyboard pass through. So we're going to put that. It's not quite in the right position. So all you do is you either take your fingers or your controllers, unlock this. We're going to move this into place here. And you can push it down or pull it up. This thing's awesome. So what this is the keyboard pass through. I'm not doing a full tutorial on how to use this. but just kind of the basics to get you going. If you guys really want to see, I mean, this is really a camping channel, camping and outdoorsy channel. But if you guys want to see a full tutorial, let me know. I'll do one in the future. Now you can see I've got my virtual hands here and just seamlessly turn into my real hands. So this is a virtual pass-through. Now that we've got the basics set up, let's see what we came here for. So I'm going to open up Adobe Premiere Pro and see how I use it in VR. So first, Premiere Pro is not going to look all that different. I mean, it's still stuck on one screen, and that's pretty lame. So what I want to do is I want to use up the rest of this real estate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do things like pull the effects tab, move it onto this, move it onto this monitor over here, and end up pulling all these over here. I've actually got a preset, so what I'm going to do is just really show you, move all this stuff over first. Move this guy, my monitor window, which now we're going to have a monster monitor window. And you may see that my head's really moving around a lot to see all this stuff. But, you can also lean back in your chair. You can make the monitor smaller if you need to. They don't really have to be this massive. But then what I've got is this entire real estate up here to look for my effects controls, project window, as well as the media browser. Move those over here. And then I get all of this real estate to look at my timeline, which is really where the vast majority of the work goes in when you're doing editing. Any editor knows that, working with such tiny little boxes really gets to be a pain, especially when you're doing your audio. So now I've got all this room to move these things up and down, and instead of moving it like a millimeter and it moving 100 decibels, like look at this. I can move it an inch and it only moves at 2.4. 2 decibels. So it gives you immense control over your audio, and that's one of the biggest game changers. Now, obviously I don't need my video panel to be that big, so I can generally shrink these down. And then even when it gets super complicated, like having 5 to 6 different items on my timeline, it's still not that big of a deal. Now my second window over here, I generally have something up like Pandora Music or something, which is not a sponsor, but I just like to have something going when I'm doing my editing. Oh, don't want to get a copyright violation there, but so I usually have something like that going on, as well as OneNote. But it's not all smooth sailing. Editing in VR does come with some challenges, so let's take a look. And if I hit play on this right now, that looks pretty smooth right there. And the only reason I got that smooth was I went into my display settings, and all of these need to be 1920 by 1080, which is right there. And once you get it exactly where you want it, all you have to do is come up here to Window, Workspaces, and put Save as New Workspace. And once you click that, you give it a name, and boom, you're done. So we'll just take a quick video and see how we edit these down real quick. So in this one, I've got the amazing Tony going to fight a snake. By the way, look at that bad boy. Oh, he is not happy. Yeah, he's gonna try to attack you. What are you doing, dude? Oh! But we want to get to the exciting stuff. So what we want to do is, get rid of all this stuff up front here. I just hit, see on my keyboard, get rid of that. You've got the controls over here, but as you're editing more and more, you've got to get familiar with those and just start using keyboard commands. Ooh, look at that. Still love that pass through. But really get the video to how you like it, and I'm gonna cut this up, and that's about all I'm gonna do there. But you guys get the point. How now I've got some immense control on this timeline to where instead of working with something that's super tiny, now I've got a lot of real estate to work with, and I've got this entire screen here. So now as you can see, that's way too small to see anything. So that's where these working in VR really helps out. Look at that. So now I get rid of all this stuff. I'm gonna make a copy of that dude. Maybe a copy of that dude. So shoot, cut it out. Go home. So there you have it. Editing in VR is really taking my stuff to a whole new level. I mean, instead of working with little tiny stuff like you see here, you get it big and really just in a different environment. So again, I'm gonna apologize to all you content creators out there, and if your editors or producers now want to get something like this, hey, might just speed them up a little bit. Now I realize this type of content isn't gonna be for everyone. This is a camping and outdoors channel, so you don't really need to hit like and subscribe if you're not really into camping. However, if you do find yourself on that technical edge, but you really do like the outdoors, go ahead and mash that button. Let me know in the comments if this helped you, or if you have any other ideas about how to edit, or if even to make this process better. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. If you like this type of content, make sure you check out our YouTube channel where we have hundreds of videos just like this. If you want to see our newest adventures, be sure to click the subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss another video.